Welcome back to another great episode of Comedians in Bed, where comedians can be comedians. And I don't really know what that means, but it just sounds like something you should say on a podcast. And the fact, as the past few episodes, I've been coming from my bedroom because we don't have any air in this building. So this is the coolest place. All right, so don't think it's creepy if I'm in my bed. Uh, Even though people do compliment my headboard, it is a pretty nice headboard. The lights don't work, but guess what, man? We got another great comedian here for you today, man. He is doing big things out in LA, and not just in LA, over the world, man. And we're going to talk about that here today. We got the very funny, the very talented, the very beautiful, the very self-motivated. You always hear those rappers that say they come up, they don't write, they just freestyle. This is, but if there's any way that I can describe this comic, that would be it. He's the Little Wayne of like comedy out in LA. And we're going to talk about that here today with my main man, Max Meisel.
Yeah, almost missed it. Good job.
No, because before I said your name, I was like, okay, where's the applause button? When you got to produce, you got to do everything yourself. I'm like, God dang, I need some help. My fingers are not that big. But now we got Max Meisel in here today. So happy to have you here today, Max. How you feeling today?
Ty, I don't know if I can match that introduction. It will only be downhill from here because you just gassed me up more than anyone's ever gassed me up ever. Thank you.
For sure, I got to, man. Out there in LA, how are you doing today? Or did I already ask that question? I feel like I did. So, how's the weather out there in LA today? Is it raining?
So we got a gloomy, cloudy day right now, but I feel like after the most epic weather for 4th of July weekend,
Yeah.
we're due for a cloudy day and everyone's in recovery mode. So this is totally fine with me.
I love LA, man. I try to come out there every year. Every year, for the past 3 years, I've been coming out there for Coachella. So I try to come out there a couple days before Coachella to try to hit some mics and stuff like that. Are you born and raised in LA?
I'm a New Yorker through and through.
Okay, okay. All right. How do we find our way to LA?
Man, great question. I never ever wanted to move out here. I was so anti-LA. I grew up right outside the city in New York, and then moved to the city right after college and was there for like 13 years. And then, COVID was like killing the industry. I'm an actor too. And I had this short film that did pretty well in the film festival circuits. It was a really fun short film that I wrote and made with my best friend. And it was about an assistant who works on porn sets. And it was super funny. And it got some draw. And it was like COVID in the middle of New York. And there was like no real reason to be there anymore. So the friend that I made it with, we came out to Los Angeles 3.5 years ago and started life and the pursuit of creative, funny stuff out here.
Max, I'm not gonna lie. When you said that, I was like, you know what? Max has the perfect face for like soap opera. I could see you on like Days of Our Lives, Young and the Restless.
Yeah, I'd rather be the funny guy doing that, but I also do like working. So if that's what happened right now, that's what happened.
That's what's up, man. Are you a Yankees fan?
I'm a Mets fan.
A Mets fan. Okay. All right. Well, we're just gonna have to end this interview real short. I'm a Yankees fan. Yeah. Our they're not anymore, but our farm league team, the Columbus Clippers, they used to be the Yankees farm league team for like the longest. Like I don't know when they started, but I know Deion Sanders, Derek Jeter, like all the primetime people like in the early 90s and 2000s, they made their way through Columbus. So
cool. Are you Columbus born and bred?
Unfortunately, yeah.
You're a big Buckeyes fan.
Yeah, big Buckeyes fan. I love the Buckeyes. It's I don't know, man. It sucks because like the Browns, the Bengals, the Reds, the Guardians, everybody, the Cavs, everybody sucked for so long that people just don't understand like how crazy Buckeye fans are. But I stopped being a crazy Buckeye fan probably once I graduated. Probably like the last time they won a national championship because I was in school at Ohio State at that time. And anybody that's watching this, they'll know if you're like a diehard Buckeye fan, like your blood pressure, it continuously up and down. I couldn't do it no more. I just couldn't do it no more. So I'm still a Buckeye fan. I'm just not a diehard Buckeye fan anymore.
I was at a Buckeye game last year against Penn State, so I get it. I get the culture, and it was really fun.
It is not fun, man. It is not fun, especially when Tressel. Whew, yeah, when Tressel took over, that's blood pressure through the roof, and yeah, they can't fail. They got it bad, but Ohio State's not even really a school anymore, man. It's a business. It's just
Yeah.
they run the whole city of Columbus. Like if Columbus wasn't here, it wouldn't be as big as it is, and it definitely wouldn't be. I don't want to say popular, but Columbus would definitely be irrelevant, more irrelevant, to be honest with you,
It
for
was great. I
sure.
loved it there, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, but now that you're out in LA, are there some things that you like or dislike about LA, seeing that you're an NY guy?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I really love. I have this beautiful apartment right near the beach that I would have never been able to get in New York. So that's a huge life upgrade. Every day I walk right down the road and I get to walk along the beach, and it's pretty crazy. Like I get to do that every single day, given that
Yeah,
I'm in a shoebox apartment in New York. What I don't like is that there's not a lot of bopping around in LA. You have to be in your car a lot. Things close really early. I liked that in New York, I could just say, "Hey, Ty, let's go meet up down here." We go to a bar there, we go to a restaurant there, we go to this there. You could just walk around and have your life right in front of you. In LA, you have to like really find the spontaneity of life.
yeah,
Definitely pluses and minuses to it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. What is how has acting benefited you when it comes to your comedic talents as far as like on the stage, but more so about like the things that you write? Because you did say you wrote a short film. So how does it help you with your writing as well?
You know, when I was in New York, I dabbled in a little bit of all of it. I did improv classes. All my acting classes were all based in classic plays, so very heavy dramatic plays. I did stand up. I really felt like I got a good collective of just performing, period. I think that like one hand always washes the other. Like I think there's always like sincere truth in comedy, and even like the super serious stuff, making sure you're just grounded in being as real as possible and not just being like all over the place, really helped me just be a quieter performer. Like sometimes as a stand up, like I can move around a lot and whatnot. I think it can be distracting from what you're trying to do. So all that's really helped for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. With the writing that comes with acting and with the writing that comes with comedy, how often are you writing? Like are we writing every day or just when we feel inspired?
I'm writing a lot. My show has been running for almost a year, and because a lot of the same people keep coming back, I've been doing a new 10 minutes every show. And what's fun about that and challenging is that I'm constantly trying to crack like this creative wave all the time. I'm always working out bits. Now I'm kind of reworking and like placing a puzzle piece together now that I have like all this material. And now that I'm doing all these other shows, I get to kind of rework and see what goes here, what goes there, and really like work this new material, right? Because I've been just like doing a lot of it one time at my show. So I'm excited now to just hone it, really work it, really beat the hell out of these jokes. But yeah, over the last year, I've been writing a ton, a ton.
So when you do that new 10, and how do you critique how did it go? Like it's like, okay, this joke got more laughs, or was it like more from a standpoint of like I enjoyed telling this joke more, the audience seemed to enjoy this more, so I'll lean more into this joke when I punch it up. Like how are you deciding to edit those jokes when you get done?
I'll go back. I tape all my sets and I go back and I listen to how I said them. I try to let the audience dictate how funny it was, even though it's not always a great tell because there's some shows where, I'll say the same joke and it crushed, then I'll say the same joke at another show and it completely went silent. So I'll look at that a little bit more. And yeah, there's certain jokes that I like to say more and that I want to rework it. I'm like, oh, like I'm hearing myself say it. It doesn't sound quite finished. Is there a different word I can use? Is there a different tagline that I can use? And that's kind of the fun part, because I feel like now you get to be like the fine artist. You have like this
Yeah.
general piece, and now you get to like see what the little details are. I try to lead with what I enjoy. That's really what it is. What do I
Yeah.
like the most? That's what I'm asking myself a lot. Even in designing my show, it's what do I want the most? And then I go with that.
One of the things that was so weird for me, and I'm gonna ask you the same thing, like when I think of new tags, like so like if I tell a joke, like as soon as I get off stage, like I'm right in my phone, like, okay, they laughed at this part, or I'll look back or listen back to it and I'll be like, okay, they laughed at this part, they didn't laugh at this part. Why was that? And then I'll be like, okay, bam. Then I might go home and I might be like, okay, maybe I should say this tag this way. But sometimes tags just come out of nowhere. Like I'm at work and a tag will just pop out and I'll just type it down and write it. So how do you decide which tag you're gonna keep or go when you after you review your set and you're looking to punch it up? Like, is it like maybe this one is funnier or this one um flows better from like maybe the audience understanding the joke more? Like, how do you decide which tag to go with?
Yeah, I think it's like as simple as you have to just do it, right?
Mhm.
And hear yourself do it, and then realize, oh, that didn't sound as smooth as I thought it was going to sound. Or, yeah, I think I just have to do it. That's really what it is. I'll do
Yeah.
it. I'll hear it back. I'll try it a couple more times. And then from there, break it apart if I need to and see if there's something else that could work.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Do you run your jokes by someone or do you just do it all yourself?
I do it. Yeah, I just do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I'll like shoot the breeze with someone and we'll like hash out a bit, or I'll have a conversation with someone and I'll be like, oh, what do you think about that? But in terms of like formulaically doing the joke, I'll just write it all out and then I'll just go try it.
Yeah. What's the difference between LA comedy? I've asked this before. I'm pretty sure you got asked this a hella times. What's the difference between LA comedy? Well, no, we're not comedy itself. What's the difference between an LA comic and a New York comic?
It's a great question. I didn't really run the scene in New York as much as I am doing it in LA. So I don't know specifically as much as, a real deal bi-coastal comic would, but from what I've gathered, you know, the New York comic is able to do like 6 sets a night, no problem, because there's 8 clubs within a 30 block radius. So you can like really work some stuff. I think like you really got to work. It seems like there could be a comic just told me this. In LA for some reason, being a host on a show is not as like respected. People don't really like to host. I love to host because I get to be on stage the whole night. In New York, being a host is a well respected spot, and people really value having a good host on your show.
Mm, okay, okay. Do you ever plan to go back to New York?
For work, not to move. I really feel like this is my home now. I'm making a great group of friends. My career is in a spot that I'm so happy with. It's like so only now like blossoming, and I'm so excited to see where that goes. I'll always be a New Yorker. I love my friends and my family there, but I don't miss living there at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What other we were talking about how you're a Mets fan. What other New York team are you a Knicks fan or your book? Are you a Nets fan? Giants or Jets?
I'm a huge Giants fan. The Giants and the
Okay.
Nets are my favorite teams. I'm a very casual Knicks fan in the playoffs, but the New York Giants absolutely run my life. Absolutely run my life.
Have
Yeah,
you been watching the HBO Hard Knocks off season?
I'm into it.
Do you like it? Because I just feel like I don't feel like I like it because like I don't know, even when I play Madden, I get more of an enjoyment of like the off season, doing like the off season tasks than actually like playing the game. I don't know, maybe probably more nerdy, but I don't know. I just feel like it's less action, so I don't know how long it's going to sustain. You know?
I think it really depends on what you like to watch. I played football at Syracuse University, so I am obsessed with the game of football. I love all the
Yeah.
ins and outs. I think Hard Knocks is a great series because it gets to show the fan like what this game looks like outside of just Sundays. So I think that for the training camp version of the show, we've seen it already. Like we know there's always going to be an underdog we have to root for. We're going to see these dramatic people getting cut. We kind of see what that looks like already. I'm glad this is bringing a new element because there is a huge other side to these franchises that have so much work that needs to be done from January to May.
Yeah.
And I love that stuff. I think if you're a casual fan, it could be boring, but I think it's so amazing to see the numbers of trades and cap hits and all these other things. I love it.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where it goes. I actually like the fact that they picked the Giants for the first one. I haven't watched the second episode yet, but I do have to do that. Side note, random as hell. I was watching Thundercats last night. I see that they got that on Disney Plus, so I was watching that shit last night. I love that shit. All right, so now coming back to LA, what is have you adopted a team out in LA, or are you just like fuck it, it's New York all through and through?
LA does not have a team. If people are fans of anything, it's the Lakers.
Yeah.
Or the Dodgers if you're like a real deal Angelino, but everyone here is a transplant, so no one here really is like a diehard anything. It's really funny actually. So I have no semblance of loyalty to any LA sports. I'm a New York sport, and there's no shot.
Yeah. All right, last sports question. So we gave you guys Cal McCord, which I wanted him to stay, but whatever. How do you think Syracuse is going to do this year in football? I actually think you guys are going to have a good year. I was actually going to pick Syracuse to be my team for NCAA football 25. I was going to be my team in dynasty mode.
Dude, I'll show you right now. Listen, Syracuse, I still have my helmet, okay? So let me tell you, I can do this interview with you right now. Syracuse is a very good team with a very rich history, okay? And the first Black Heisman Trophy winner is from Syracuse University. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I love Syracuse.
History of football.
Yeah. I wanted to go to Syracuse. I ain't had a grades for Syracuse because they got a good journalism program.
I was in that program. Yeah, the Newhouse School.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that. I feel like sometimes not everybody, but what I realized from studying people who've done journalism is that if they don't make it, they usually go into acting or comedy or like some type of creative. I kind of like, now that I've realized that, I kind of see journalism as a creative art, to be honest with you, because if you look at SportsCenter and they're doing the highlights, there is no, I mean, granted, like I used to work in news, so like there is a bit of a script, but you go so off script, like, and then when you're, broadcasting games from the booth, there is no script. Like you're just saying all these things off the dome. I kind of see it as a creative art.
Yeah, it really is. I was in the television, radio, and film program, but I worked with a lot of the broadcast journalism kids, and like these are all like sports lovers who just are able to go off the cuff because they know exactly what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I feel like, especially in improv, it's like you better know what you're talking about so that you can go off script. And that's why those people are so talented. Like all of the best sports broadcasters are Syracuse graduates. It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But now that you're in LA, you're doing great things out there. You have the Backdoor Comedy. How did you come up with the name? How did you get the venue? Like, how did you come up with all of this? Because it started a whole new show in a whole new, not only town, but state, especially on a whole different coast, that could come up with some challenges. So how did you come up with it, and how did you build it to a point that it is very successful?
Going back to what we were talking about before, I really felt like I was just running this horrible hamster wheel of being like your typical LA actor who was just kind of like at the mercy of the industry, telling us like when we can audition. Like I've always had an agent, but even still, like you get an audition, 3 weeks go by, maybe you get another audition, then it's slow. And I felt like it was just so hard to get any sort of momentum, to feel like I was doing this thing. And there was about to be a strike last summer again, the industry was going to shut down for the entire rest of the year. That was like last July. It was a year ago, actually. And I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I feel like I am never going to make it if I am just another actor waiting around. And, I'm in my 30s. I've wasted a lot of years waiting around. I wasn't getting on stage as a stand-up, and I've been writing stand-up, tons of stand-up, and I just wasn't getting on stage. So I thought the smartest move would be to just make the show. And fortunately, I had a bit of a community already, because when I moved here, I started teaching group fitness classes, and it was just a great way to make friends and a great way to just plug into a community. And I was organizing these monthly happy hours for the studio. Once a month, we would gather at this bar next to the studio and just hang out. And 30, 40, 50 people would come every month. And I was seeing all these really excited people that were just excited to like find community. That's what I was thinking every time I did this. I was like, oh, people are just so excited to hang and have a place where they already know some people and can kind of just jam. And after doing that for 6 months, I was like, you know what? I'm making this happy hour my comedy show, and I'm just going to do the damn thing.
Yeah.
I had never produced a comedy show before. I had no idea really what to do. I didn't really have a network of comedians that I was friends with or had worked with here, but I knew 1 or 2 comics, picked their brain, had them on my show, and had them refer me to people. And that first show was last August. I was just like, I hope the microphones work. I had no idea what to even expect. But 1 second, this thing fell. But I had somebody playing music. I had a mic set up, and I had 5 comics, and I was expecting like 80 people to come. That was what I was guessing. And 143 people came to the first show. And it was great. And everyone loved it. It was structured more as a traditional comedy show. Not at all what it is now, but 143 people in this really big outdoor area, eating food, drinking beers, and watching good comedy. And after that first show, I was like, okay, this is great. Let's do this again. So I did it again. 138 came. Did it again. 140 came. And every time I was like learning a little bit more about, all right, how do I make this a little bit different than a traditional comedy show? And then I moved it to an indoor location. Then I added a food truck. Then I added a DJ. Then I added like a cool happy hour. So I was bringing the elements of the things I was creating with this happy hour for the gym to a comedy show, and that's kind of where it started. I also was seeing traditional comedy shows getting a little bit stale and boring. I think that the traditional comedy club model is not keeping up with the times of how people are wanting to enjoy comedy. If you really think about it, you walk into these comedy clubs, it's like a chair and a table. Everyone's like facing this way. There's a 2-drink minimum. The room is just black. You walk in, see the show, walk out. I thought there was a lot of other things that were missing, like these happy hours where people can hang and talk, like this after party that I do where the chairs get cleared and now the DJ's playing. I wanted to see more, and I just essentially created the exact show that I wanted to see. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be at. And that's kind of where it's landed now.
How was the marketing? Because like you are in LA, and to get 100 people to come out to see comedy is pretty big. There's so many other events that they could do. Like how was the marketing to get those 100 people in there consistently?
Yeah, it started really with the gym, the studio. Because I was always there, and because I was organizing these happy hours, and because I organized that first show, I think people trusted that like I could put together a cool event. And I would put up a flyer in the studio and then post on my Instagram, and that was really it. I don't have a big social media following, so I trust that the show has been good enough that people now are just talking about it with their friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my next challenge. I live in Santa Monica, and so this West Side crowd, Venice, Santa Monica, they know about the show. But my next challenge is, how do I get people across town knowing about this show? And it's happening now, but slowly.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what is this comedy party? That's what intrigued me to have you on the show. I've never heard of anything like that. Like here in the city, we might like have like a potluck or whatever. I don't do that. I don't eat everybody's cooking, or we might have like a end of the year Christmas party. I'll go to that, but that's about as far as it. But you have like a comedy party. What exactly is that, and how did you come up with that idea as well?
Yeah, the show is structured in 3 phases. From 7 to 8 o'clock, there's a proper happy hour. There's a bar. There's a DJ. There's a pizza truck. There's a proper hang. And what's awesome about this is that normal comedy shows you go to, people are like running in just before the show. Not with this. The doors are at 7. People are in there at 7:15. People are loving this hang. And then at 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock is the comedy show. And then at 9 o'clock, the chairs get cleared. The DJ comes back on. Sometimes I'll have like another performer. Last show, I had an aerialist spinning from the ceiling, and we dance and we have a good time. And that ends when it ends. And so to me, this is not a comedy show. This is an experience. This is an event. This is a party. And that's kind of how I'm pushing this thing.
Yeah, that's actually smart. Like you come get some food, get something to eat, link up, find some baddies, and then we go to the show laughing, and then afterwards I get the baddie's number. It's very smart. It's very
Even further, and I will tell you, Ty, because I thought about all these things.
uh-huh.
So even more, during the course of the show, I have a sign when you walk in, and the sign says, "What are your pronouns?"
Uh-huh.
There's a bracelet, an LED bracelet that coordinates with your relationship status. So
Okay.
bracelet is your single, yellow for it's complicated, red if you're taken, and purple for let's get weird. So the entire audience is wearing a bracelet. And it's designed, again, for you to find a way to socially connect with somebody. That's all the show is. I'm creating things that make you go to the person next to you and say, I can't believe there's an aerialist spinning from the ceiling. Or,
Yeah.
oh, your bracelet's yellow. What's going on in your relationship right now? It's all designed for you to talk to somebody. And that's what I thought was missing from comedy shows. People weren't talking. People weren't hanging. They were sitting, they were watching, and then they were leaving. And I got bored of that very quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I feel like humble beginnings is where we do like most of our construction for what our next biggest thing is going to be. So, or like what our ultimate biggest thing is going to be, right? So, what is like your ultimate goal? Or is this just something like this is just where I'm at this level? Or is there like an idea that you want to have to where you're like throwing monthly parties at the Staples Center or something like that? Like, what's the ultimate big goal for like your show?
Short term, my goal is always, how can I make the show a little bit more engaging next month?
Mm-hmm.
You know, no two shows are the same. And that's exciting to find that challenge, right? I want you who've seen 10 of my shows to be just as surprised as the person who just came for the second time or the first time. So that's my short-term goal every month. And then long-term, and what's exciting is I'm talking to people now about this and I'm being asked, where else could backdoor comedy go? So I'm like, all right, like where else could a comedy party play well? A college tour version of this could really play well. I see that. I want to take this to New York. New York would really like this. So I think like those like nightclubs, like places where it isn't a tradition. This is the anti-comedy club show, right? This would never work in a comedy club. So where else could this work? A big event space at a college, a nightclub where, if people don't go to nightclubs till 10:30, what if this was happening at 9:30? So you have an hour earlier that this club is having people in there, and then you clear the chairs, and then we do the nightclub thing. So things like that. I'm thinking of those. Yeah.
Well, that's smart. That's smart. It's really different. Like I never thought about the party aspect of it. People do come to get drunk, but they really don't talk. I mean, they really do encourage they really do encourage you not to talk at all. It's even got to the point where they tell the comics not to talk to the audience too. And I understand that, but nah, that's really smart. I get that. I get that. What's like your ultimate dream stage to perform on that when you get there, you'll be like, I've made it. If you haven't already feel like you've made it.
I think that right now I'm getting some really awesome opportunities to perform with some really amazing people. And I'm around so many amazing comics. You know, this show has really enabled me to, even though I'm really new to town, it's enabled me to have a little bit of currency. I don't really feel like I have a seat at the table, but I definitely feel like I'm contributing to why comedy's doing great in LA right now. And I'm constantly right now feeling every month that I've made it in some way, you know? Um, so I don't know what it'll look like in terms of what event or what venue will make me feel like I've really made it. Every time I get on that stage for my show, I really feel so like lucky. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Like 2 months ago, there was 190 people in the room, and I was like, they're all here because of this show.
Yeah.
I made it, you know, and I say that every month. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. I feel the same. Anytime I get to just go up there and just be myself, I'll be like, yeah, this is what I strive to do for sure. I definitely get that. All right, so now do you feel how did you go about networking since you're from New York, you know, you're in LA. How was that process and what like tricks or tools did you use to get your foot in the door or was it just through the show that you helped got your name out there?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question because this is part of some of the best advice I've been given in LA to this date. So for the first like 5, 6 months of me doing the show, I pretty much was just doing my show. I wasn't going up to Hollywood to hang as much. I was seeing a lot of shows, but I wasn't really doing the hang. You know, going up to the Comedy Store and just hanging in the back with the comics, going to the Hollywood Improv and just sitting by the bar and talking to people. I wasn't doing that. I was a little bit intimidated because I felt like while my show was always doing well, I felt like, oh, in Hollywood, that's like a different breed. Those comics are like really next level. Even though a lot of these comics were doing my show, if you look at the lineup, my show was filled with Comedy Store regulars.
Yeah.
It was filled with people that are like opening for Anthony Jeselnik and opening for Burt Kreischer. Like heavy hitters have been on my show. I just felt very intimidated for some reason that like I did not yet belong. And then in April, this one comic was just walking by the venue and she walked in. She wasn't on the bill. She just happened to be walking by and she walked in. She introduced herself to me. And she said, I want to talk to you. So I want you to come and meet me at the Comedy Store on Saturday. Let's talk. It was the first time I went to the Comedy Store. And I've been doing my show for like 9, 8 months already. And she introduced me to some people. We talked. And she said to me, is this really your first time at the Comedy Store, hanging as a comic? And I said, yeah. And she said, how many people are coming to your show every month? I said, as of now, as of April, it's averaging like 150. It's averaging more now, but at the time it was averaging 150 a show. And she said, outside of the main clubs, you have the best show in LA. Why don't these people here know who you are? I was like, you're right. She says, you have to be here all the time. These people have to know who you are. You run the hottest show in town. Everybody here has to know who you are. You have to be here all the time. And she was so right. And in just the 3 months that I've made that my priority, I've met so many amazing comics. I've been asked to host and do other shows just because I'm around and I'm hanging and I'm talking and I'm asking so many questions. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not going in there being like, hey, can I do your show? That's not very useful. But what's happening is I'll be introduced to someone who's done my show and they'll say, oh, Ty, you got to meet Max. he runs the 6 show in Venice. Come check it out. Oh, what's the deal? And that's how it's just happening. And 3-4 times a week, I go to Hollywood, I hang out, I talk to people, and I just listen. I'm a sponge right now. And that's the advice I've been given.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. How do you choose the comedians? I run shows out here too, and I try not to pick comedians that have the same style. So like I'm kind of like monotone. I'm not really like physical or nothing like that. So I probably wouldn't pick another comic who's monotone and don't really move either. So how do you choose the comics? Because I like it to be diverse, not necessarily diverse of like race or gender, but diverse as opposed to like styles. So how do you choose like what comics you're going to put on the show?
Yeah, I agree with that way to go about it. I, first and foremost, try to get people that I just like on the show. I want this to feel as much like a fun hang as possible. So I lead with that. I like to make sure there's always 2 females on the lineup because the crowd is mostly female. And I don't think that listening to 4 guys up there talk about dick jokes is very funny after 1 or 2 people. So I want different voices, like you just said. You know, I had a girl who was like 8 months pregnant on my last show. And I'm like, I'm interested in hearing what she has to say about life, you know? I don't ever have a quota of like, oh, I want a black person, I want a white person, I want a gay person. But I definitely want different voices. So it ends up happening that way. I like that.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes, like if you have the same style of comics, it can get kind of one note and people get kind of bored. Like I want that loud comic that they necessarily don't need a mic, and then one comic that sings his jokes and shit like that. I think it just makes it more better and makes it flows a little better. So
I just stopped doing this because I was ready for a change. But every show that I've done up until last month, out of the 4 comics that would come up, one of them would be an alt comic. So one person, he would do like musical comedy. One guy did mime. One guy did just a set where he was doing pantomiming to a set series of music. It doesn't always work, but I like it because it kind of perks the audience's ears up. They're like, oh, what's going on now? Is this guy not going to talk for 10 minutes? Like, what is this? I like the variety. It's fun.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. Every time I come out to LA, y'all be on some weird shit. Like it was this one. The first year I was out there, I don't know what it's called, but whatever dentist put in your mouth to keep your mouth open, like he literally put that in his mouth and he did his whole set with that in his mouth. That was the first year I came. I don't remember his name. And then last year I came. I don't know. I've never seen it before. It was a dude. He had on like a T-Rex mask, and then he went up there with a bag, and he didn't say not one fucking word. He literally just put a whole bunch of doll heads on the stage, and just that's all he did. And I'm just like, bro, what the fuck is going on? But people was laughing. I'm like, bruh, it's crazy. But I love LA because every time I come out there, it makes me think differently as a comic. Like, what other way can I make them laugh? Because at first I was just doing your stereotypical jokes, white this, black this, how different we are. But then when first year I went out there, I heard a comic made a joke about dandruff, and I was like, yeah, we gotta write a little bit different when we go back home.
I've learned a lot from people. I think that I saw a couple of there's a lot of really interesting alt comedy going on the east side in like Silver Lake and Los Feliz and stuff like that. A lot of people that like remind me of just like the New York theater scene where it's just like it's weird and it's not for everybody and it's not supposed to be. And I was going to watch those people and I was very inspired by them because I was like, oh wow, here I am, this like out of work actor who's just like waiting for opportunities. But these people across town are doing a monthly show. Every month they have to get ready for it. And they don't give a shit about the industry being on strike or this or that. They got to go do their monthly show. I got to go learn from those people. So I went over to those shows and I befriended those guys. And then they started doing my show. And they make me inspired because I'm like, look at these people like using every inch of themselves to tell a joke, to tell a story. I'm learning a lot from those people. And it is weird. And it's not supposed to be for everybody. But
Yeah.
I like what they're doing, I like what they're thinking about.
Yeah. Where do you see the state of comedy going forward? It's probably the most popular that it's ever been, and there are comedy shows all over the place. People going to comedy shows is more popular than ever. You know, it doesn't always have to be at a club. It can be at your local bar or whatever. Everybody's going to comedy shows everywhere. Where do you see the state of comedy going forward?
Comedy's booming right now, big time. People are very excited to hear a little bit of danger, right? I think that TV and film over the last couple of years really tried to course correct, really try to right some wrongs. They try to get different kinds of people on, on camera that, waited their turn and now it was their turn. But I think everyone's so afraid to say something wrong that it's the storylines have suffered on screen, I think. But in comedy, man, a comic gets up and he says something that you're not supposed to say, and everyone goes, "Ooh, wow, I'm so happy he said that." That's what's going on. I'm seeing it. And they might not give themselves a permission to laugh just yet, but boy, they're excited that someone just said it. So I think comedy allows them this safe space where they can go and be like, "Oh, God, I've been thinking that. So glad he said it." So people are really excited by live events. I think after the post-COVID world too, this one lawyer comes to my show and he works with a lot of agencies, and he's like, "Dude, all these agencies care about right now, live events, live events, live events." Like that's right now busting out the doors. And so I think comedy has a very bright future. However, I think that the standard model for how we're watching comedy needs to change, because it is a bit traditional, and I don't think it's keeping up with the times of how modern day people are seeking entertainment. And that's why I've structured my show the way it is.
I always like to ask this when they move from one city to the next. Who was Max when you left New York, and who is Max now?
What a next level question, Ty. Wow. I think that while New York is a city where you really have to hustle to make it, I found myself kind of complacent and quite lazy. I had a really cheap apartment. I was making a nice living. I didn't really need much more. I wasn't fulfilled, but I was able to kind of coast. And it wasn't doing anything for me. And being in LA, really having to start over, how I make money, making new friends, transforming a career that I've been really working a long time at, it's forced me to get uncomfortable, and it's forced me to get a little hungry again. And I really like putting myself in those positions. And I kind of forgot how to do that. And I'm very grateful for the show because it is now re-engage that part of me. Like I talked about playing football at Syracuse before. Like, I'm not a big guy, and I really had to work hard in a lot of different ways to make it as a football player. And I've been really working hard to find that fire again and the mode that it put me in. And this is a long-winded answer, but it's a deeply emotional answer for me.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'm excited for like the fire that's been like re-engaged in me about this show. And so the new version of me is kind of like that like young kid at Syracuse who just like was dying to play football and was ready to do whatever it took to make it because he didn't have a shot, and he just figured it out because he just really wanted to do it and he really loved it. And this is like the new me right now. And I'm even like very sensitive about how much I talk about it to my friends because it's all I care about. I'm obsessed with this. Nothing else matters to me right now. I got broken up with by a girl a month ago because she says I care too much about this. See ya, babe. I don't give a shit. And I'm as excited as I've ever been. And
Yeah.
that's the new me that's happened. That's the new me for sure.
One thing that stuck with me was when you said being uncomfortable. About a couple years ago, my counselor at the time, she had told me that I have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that was the first time I ever heard that. And ever since then, I've been kind of striving to do that. And I do it so well that I don't even notice that I'm uncomfortable. Like I remember one time I was at work and my manager at the time, she was like, well, when you were in the meeting and you said XYZ, it made them uncomfortable. And I was like, well, that's their problem. I don't got no problem being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And now I see how I am kind of like fighting for myself. I was reading this book. It's called something like to the effect of like healing your aloneness. And it's a subtitle about something about your childhood. And basically it's a book about like protecting your inner child and protecting your inner child and like loving your inner child. And I feel like ever since my counselor has told me that and I started to read that book, I have learned that when I do comedy, it is really my inner child coming out to play. And it's my dream. It's my childhood dream, like coming to life. Like, even though I'm not where I'm at, like I'm not full time, I don't have the numbers I want. I'm not where I'm at as a writer, as a performer yet. I'm still happy that in this humble beginning stage of where I'm at in my career, that I am loving my inner child and I have learned how to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, because that in itself have taken me places that I could have never imagined, not just like over the world, but just like within myself. You know, I used to like be afraid to go out the house because I had so much anxiety. And now I'm out like every night. So I just look at it as those wins and I bask in that. And it just motivates me to keep moving forward, to see what else this journey has in store for me.
It's really awesome, man. That's really cool that you've been able to unleash that sense of play on stage. That's so cool. I think that, yeah, that's what I feel like as well. It's play. It's so fun.
Yeah.
And my football coach at Syracuse, he also said, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I don't think that means we have to like constantly live in a state of discomfort, but yeah, like what's like something that we can do every week that is a little bit outside of our comfort zone. I met this really cool publicist sitting at this bar. We were randomly talking. She was waiting for a friend. She was by herself. And she was saying that like she was in a state of like absolute fear sitting at this bar by herself waiting for her friend. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Why? Like, I don't know. I'm by myself at this bar. Everyone else is here with friends. I'm like, who cares? And then we talked a little bit more about it, and she was like, oh, I would never go to dinner by myself. I could never do something like that. And I was like, well, why not? Like, you physically could, like, you're not going to die.
Right.
We're looking at it. We just got in this like very interesting next level conversation about like what it really means to put yourself out there in a way that might seem scary, but like is not that big of a deal,
Yeah.
And what is an interesting way to test yourself and really like challenge what you think might be an anxiety. But really, it's just like this random little thing that, like, if you did once, you maybe would, like, be relatively okay with it. And, yeah, I think that like, we can all live a life in a bubble if we want, and that's totally fine. The world needs that. But we can also find a way to challenge ourselves. And I don't think it needs to be in the form of, like, going and doing stand-up. I think it could be in the form of you sitting at dinner by yourself because you want to go to that restaurant. Instead of being like, oh, I'm not going to go to that restaurant because no one wants to go with me. Well, how badly do you really want to eat there? I think that we have to keep asking ourselves these questions. And if there's something we claim that we want, we have to be willing to do what we have to do to get them. And if we're not willing to do the things to get there, then we have to ask the next level question of, well, how badly do I really want to do that thing? Do you want to be a comedian? Do you want to be a whatever? There's things that are required to get there, and those things are not going to be comfortable. And even the course of my career, I've been incredibly lazy over the course of my pursuit of being an actor and or a comedian. And it's forced me to ask really tough questions of like, do I really want to do this? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Do I want to be famous? Do I want to get girls? Do I think it'll be like a gateway to make more money? Like, I've had to ask all these questions. And at different times, I've had to live with like the annoying answers that I get.
Yeah.
But that is also, and that's why I keep bringing this back to like need. It's like, what ultimately do you need right now?
Yeah.
And as uncomfortable as I am all the time doing the show, I still teach group fitness classes. So I'm up at the crack of dawn while I'm at the Comedy Store till 1 a.m.
Yeah.
I never sleep. I don't give a fuck right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm uncomfortable all the time. I'm uncomfortable all the time. I don't fucking sleep. I get in trouble at work. And I couldn't care less because I need to do this. I'm so happy doing this. And that's really what it comes back to. That's it.
That's me every time I do a Don't Tell comedy set. I'm like, do you really want to stop? Do you really want to keep doing this? Because they weren't laughing at all. I think you need to sit.
It happens too, man. Boy, oh boy, I've done some tough things. Oh, yeah.
As we start to wrap this up, man, I always like to ask the same questions. Who is on your Mount Rushmore for comedy?
Whew, great question. How many names do I get? 4?
Yep.
All right. I want to go a little off kilter here, okay? Jim Carrey is like a guy that is like one of one, right? Like no one can do his physical comedy. Nobody. Right? He's doing things that no one could do if they tried. As a performer who uses like every inch of his body to be funny, to me, Jim Carrey's up there. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, I mean, Eddie Murphy is just like regarded as like one of the best living comedic performers ever, you know, like forget just on a stage, you know, I've watched Delirious a bunch of times. He's like, I think he's like 23 in that red freaking one-piece jumpsuit.
Yeah.
Killing it at like 23. And, you know, he's had an amazing career on screen as well. He's got to be up there. Number 3. I'd love to give it to like an OG, like a Pryor or a Carlin or somebody like that, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I don't know their work as much, like those guys laid the groundwork, you know, for what is modern day comedy.
Yeah.
And then number 4, I mean, similar to Jim Carrey, like I love Robin Williams. Voices. And again, like a Jim Carrey, like just using his whole body.
Yeah.
Like I could never on my best day even like do a 10th of what they do, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be a very untraditional 4, but I got to tell you, that's the kind of 4 that I admire.
I don't think anyone's ever said Jim Carrey before. I never really thought about that. You know what? Now that you said that, I will feel like I've made it when I get to ask Jim Carrey to make me a painting. That's when I feel like I will make it. That's a whole different level right there. I love Jim Carrey, man. He's a funny guy. What piece of advice do you have? I know we've been doing it all episode, but if there's one last piece of advice that you could give to any comedian that's listening to this right now, what would you say?
Are you willing to break from the norm of how this road traditionally looks? And if so, what does that look like to you?
Message.
Max, tell people why they should listen to Comedians in Bed.
They should listen to Comedians in Bed because it's a very engaging podcast about the process of being a performer. I think this whole hour has been a blast. I think it extends well beyond just what it means to be a guy on stage with a mic. I think we really got to cover a lot of topics about like why we do what we do, how it's translated to other parts of our lives, and in what other ways these kinds of approaches can be utilized in just like our everyday life. So I think that's a good pitch for it.
Max, tell people where they can find you at.
Sure. I have my monthly comedy party every month in Venice, and my Instagram has all of the show updates. It's Max Meisel 86, and the show also has an Instagram page called Backdoor Comedy LA.
Be sure to check out Max Meisel wherever you see him out in LA. If you want to catch next week's episode, we go live every Tuesday on my YouTube channel at TYE Comedy. But if you miss it, that's okay. You can listen to this show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you just so happen to miss that, or if you want to see it, you can watch our weekly clips on my on our IG page at Comedians in Bed Podcast on Instagram. Go ahead and check that out. We want to thank Max Meisel for coming on here once again. If you're out in LA, please be sure to check out Backdoor Comedy. It's a pretty good time there for you, and you could get somebody with all the. I want the purple one. That's what I want. I want to. Let's get wild. Don't sue me, but let's get wild.
Yeah, it is.
But no, man, we appreciate Max once again. Everybody else, we will see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.